Marcus Chen stood in the middle of the enormous auction hall on Station Kepler 9, looking around at rows and rows of empty seats. The place could hold at least 500 beings. Maybe more. Right now, it held exactly 2. Marcus and a very bored-looking Vrixian auctioneer who kept checking his wrist device every few seconds. "This is weird," Marcus muttered to himself. He had traveled 3 days from his salvage yard on Titan's moon to get here. 3 days in a cramped transport ship, eating nothing but protein bars and recycled water. He had seen the advertisements everywhere. Massive bankruptcy auction, decommissioned ships, government surplus. Don't miss out. The promotional materials showed crowds of eager buyers, exotic vessels, and promised deals of a lifetime. Instead, he got this: an empty hall that smelled like cleaning chemicals and disappointment. The Vrixian auctioneer, whose name tag read Zilnex, cleared his throat with a sound like gravel in a blender. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme boredom in his species. "Shall we begin?" Zilnex asked, his translator making his voice sound tired and flat. "Sure," Marcus said, still confused. "But where is everyone?" The ad said this was going to be huge. Zilnex's mouth parts twitched in what might have been a smile or a grimace. It was hard to tell with Vrixians. Yes, well, the main attraction scared them away. Scared them away? It's just old ships, right? Mostly yes. Surplus cargo haulers, retired mining vessels, some old military scouts. Zilnex tapped his display screen, and holograms of various ships flickered to life above the auction platform. Those would have brought many buyers. But then, there is the other one. Marcus leaned forward in his seat. Other one? Zilnex hesitated. His clawed fingers hovered over his screen. Lot number 7. The Wandering Echo. A Caith cruiser. The name hit Marcus like cold water. Caith. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name, even humans who had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. The Caith had been one of the ancient species, old and wise and powerful. They had built things that made modern technology look like children's toys. And then, 200 years ago, they had vanished. All of them. Gone in a single day. "Wait," Marcus said slowly. "A Caith ship? A real one? Those are worth millions. Why would nobody come to bid on that?" Zilnex made a rattling sound deep in his throat. "Because Caith ships are cursed. Human. Everyone knows this. The last dealer who bought one went mad within a week. The one before that disappeared completely. And the one before that, well, his ship was found drifting near the Helix Nebula, with no crew aboard. Just blood on the walls." Marcus felt his skin prickle. "That's just stories. Superstition." Perhaps. Zilnex didn't sound convinced. But when the auction house announced the Caith vessel would be included, every other registered bidder canceled. Every single one. Even the fearless Kryn scavengers, who will buy anything, stayed away. "So why are you still here?" "I am contractually obligated." Zilnex sounded miserable. "Company policy. The auction must proceed even with one bidder present. Believe me, human, I would rather be anywhere else." Marcus sat back in his chair, thinking hard. He had come here hoping to buy a decent cargo hauler for his salvage business, something reliable that could help him transport scrap metal and old equipment between colonies. He had saved up 20,000 credits for it, his entire life savings. But a Caith ship? Even a cursed one? If he could get it working, if he could sell just one component from it, he would be rich. Set for life. He could retire, buy a real house on Earth, never worry about money again. Of course, he might also go mad or disappear mysteriously. But life was full of risks. "All right," Marcus said. "Let's do this. Show me the ships. Zilnex looked relieved to finally start. He went through the first 6 lots quickly. A cargo hauler with a damaged engine. A mining vessel with expired safety certificates. A military scout that was at least 100 years old. Marcus bid the minimum on each one, 500 credits, knowing that without competition, they would be his if he wanted them. But he was waiting for number 7. Finally, Zilnex pulled up the image, and Marcus caught his breath. The wandering echo was beautiful. Even as a hologram, even shown from a distance, it was stunning in a way that made Marcus's chest ache. It didn't look like modern ships with their blocky, practical designs. It looked organic, like something that had grown rather than been built. The hull curved in smooth, flowing lines that reminded Marcus of seashells or bird wings. Strange patterns covered its surface, maybe decorations, maybe something else. Lot number 7, Zilnex said quietly. The Wandering Echo. Caith deep space cruiser. 300 years old. Length, 400 meters. Crew capacity, unknown. Cargo capacity, unknown. Current condition, unknown. The vessel has been in impound for 17 years after being found drifting in the outer reach. Multiple attempts to board it have failed. Failed how? The airlocks will not open. The ship appears to have power, but does not respond to any standard protocols. Scanning equipment malfunctions near it. It is, essentially, a very expensive piece of space junk that nobody can enter. Zilnex paused. Starting bid. 5,000 credits. Do I hear? 5,000. Marcus said immediately. Zilnex waited, looking around the empty hall out of habit. Going once. Going twice. He sighed. Sold to the human for 5,000 credits. Just like that, Marcus owned a Caith cruiser. The transaction took another hour. Marcus transferred his credits, signed dozens of documents in languages he didn't understand, and received a data chip with the ship's location and basic ownership codes. Zilnex seemed increasingly nervous the whole time, as if Marcus might disappear or go mad right there in the auction hall. Good luck, human, Zilnex said when everything was finished. His tone suggested he thought Marcus would need it. And perhaps do not tell anyone you bought it from me? Marcus took a transport shuttle out to where the Wandering Echo was docked in a forgotten corner of the station's shipping yards. The area was dark and cold, with only emergency lights flickering along the walls. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. No other ships were nearby. It was like the station had quarantined this section. And there it was. The hologram hadn't done it justice. Up close, the Wandering Echo was magnificent. Its hull seemed to shimmer with faint colors that shifted when Marcus moved his head, blues and greens, and purples flowing like oil on water. The strange patterns he had seen in the hologram were actually some kind of writing, or maybe art. They covered every surface in delicate, swirling designs. Marcus approached the main airlock, his heart pounding. This was the moment of truth. If the ship really wouldn't open, he had just wasted 5,000 credits on a giant paperweight. He pressed his hand against the access panel, expecting nothing. The panel lit up beneath his palm. Light flooded through the patterns on the hull, racing outward from where he touched like ripples on water. The airlock made a sound like a sigh, not mechanical at all, but organic, like something breathing, and the door slid open smoothly. Marcus stepped inside, and the door sealed behind him with a soft click. The interior was impossible. That was Marcus's first thought. It was too clean, too perfect. There should have been dust after 17 years of abandonment. There should have been decay, corrosion, signs of age. Instead, everything looked brand new. The walls glowed with soft bioluminescent light blues and greens that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The corridors curved and branched in ways that seemed more like a living organism than a ship. Marcus walked deeper inside, his footsteps making no sound on the strange, soft floor. He passed rooms full of equipment he couldn't identify. He saw windows showing the stars outside, except the windows seemed too clear, too perfect, like looking at reality itself with no barrier at all. Finally, he reached what had to be the central chamber. It was a vast circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the galaxy spinning overhead. In the center stood a massive crystalline structure, taller than Marcus, growing up from the floor like a tree made of frozen light. It pulsed with soft colors, blues, greens, purples, golds, and as Marcus approached it, the colors began to pulse faster. He reached out and touched it. The crystal flared bright white, and Marcus heard a voice in his head. Not in his ears, in his head, speaking English with perfect clarity and warmth. "Welcome, Marcus Chen. We have been waiting for you." Marcus jerked his hand back, his heart racing. "I am Memoria," the voice said. "I am the consciousness of the wandering echo. And you, Marcus Chen, are the first being in 200 years, with the genetic resonance required to access the archive." "The archive? What archive?" The entire room suddenly filled with light. Images flashed around Marcus' alien cities, strange technologies, beings he had never seen before. Music played, beautiful and haunting. He saw worlds being born, and stars dying, and civilizations rising and falling. "The archive of the Caith," Memoria said softly. "Everything we were, everything we learned, everything we wish to give to those who came after us. And you, Marcus Chen, are the key to unlocking it all." Marcus stood frozen, surrounded by wonders beyond imagination, and realized that his simple salvage purchase had just become something far, far bigger than he could have ever dreamed. Marcus stood in the glowing chamber, his mouth dry, and his heart hammering against his ribs. The crystalline structure pulsed with light, and the voice Memoria echoed gently in his mind. "Please do not be afraid," Memoria said. "I mean you no harm. I have waited a very long time to speak with someone." 200 years, Marcus whispered. "You said you've been waiting 200 years?" "Yes, since the day the Caith left this realm." Marcus forced himself to breathe slowly. He had 1,000 questions, but one came out first. "Left? Everyone says the Caith went extinct, that they all died in some catastrophe. That is what most species believe," Memoria replied. The lights in the crystal shifted to softer blues and purples. "But it is not the truth. The Caith did not die, Marcus Chen. They transcended." "Transcended? What does that mean?" The chamber around Marcus changed. The walls seemed to dissolve, replaced by images, memories, he realized. He saw tall, graceful beings with 3 eyes and skin that shifted between silver and gold. The Caith. They moved through beautiful cities where buildings grew like plants, and technology seemed to blend seamlessly with nature. "For thousands of years, my creators sought knowledge," Memoria explained. "They explored every corner of science, philosophy, art, and consciousness. And finally, they achieved what they called the Great Understanding. They learned how to transcend physical form, to exist as pure thought and energy. On the appointed day, every Caith transformed and departed this plane of existence." Marcus watched the images show the final day, the Caith gathering in enormous groups, touching each other in farewell. Then, one by one, they began to glow with brilliant light and simply faded away. Not dying, but transforming into something else. Something more. Within hours, the entire species had vanished, leaving their cities empty and their ships dormant. "That's incredible," Marcus breathed. "But why leave all this behind? Why leave the ship?" "Because the Caith believed in giving gifts," Memoria said warmly. "Before they left, They created the archive, a repository of everything they had learned, everything they had created, everything they wanted to share with the species who would come after them. The images changed again. Marcus saw vast libraries of knowledge, technologies that made his brain hurt, trying to understand them, art and music from dozens of civilizations, medical advances, agricultural techniques, and so much more. This is all here? On this ship? Yes. Medical cures for diseases your species considers incurable. Energy systems that could power entire planets cleanly and eternally. Agricultural methods that could end hunger. Mathematics that would revolutionize your understanding of reality. Cultural treasures from civilizations that no longer exist, preserved so they would not be forgotten. Marcus felt dizzy. He reached out to steady himself against the crystal, and when his hand touched it, knowledge flooded into his mind. Just a tiny sample, but enough to make him gasp. He saw the formula for a medicine that could cure the Red Plague, the disease that had killed millions across human colonies. He saw designs for engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. He saw agricultural techniques that could make desert worlds bloom. This is worth. Marcus couldn't even finish the sentence. Worth was too small a word. This was priceless. This could change everything. But there was a condition. Memoria continued. The Caith knew that such knowledge could be dangerous in the wrong hands. So they designed the archive with a lock. It can only be opened by a species with a specific trait. What trait? The ability to hold contradictions, Memoria said. To be both logical and emotional. Both warlike and peaceful. Both selfish and generous. The Caith believed that only a species that embraced paradox, that could think with both their minds and hearts, could be trusted with this gift. Marcus thought about humanity. He thought about how humans could write beautiful poetry and also wage terrible wars, how they could be incredibly smart and incredibly stupid at the same time, how they could hate each other over tiny differences but also risk their lives for complete strangers. And humans, we qualify. You are the first species in 200 years to possess the necessary genetic and neurological markers, Memoria confirmed. The first species chaotic enough, contradictory enough, to unlock the archive. When you touched the crystal, I scanned your DNA and your brain patterns. You, Marcus Chen, are human, and humanity is ready. Marcus laughed. A slightly hysterical sound. Ready? Have you seen humans lately? We're a mess. We argue about everything. Half the colonies aren't even speaking to Earth right now. We barely joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and we're already making enemies. Precisely, Memoria said, and Marcus could swear the AI sounded amused. You are perfectly imperfect, beautifully chaotic. Exactly what the Caith hoped to find. Marcus was about to respond when a sharp beeping sound cut through the chamber. His wrist communicator was flashing red emergency priority. He tapped it. The face that appeared in the hologram was Talia Ruiz, the station administrator he had spoken with briefly when he first arrived. She looked terrified. Mr. Chen, you need to leave that ship immediately. We're detecting an enormous energy signature coming from it. Every sensor on the station is going crazy. What did you do? I touched something. That's all. Well, you activated something. The ship is broadcasting a signal across half the sector. Every government, every military fleet, every scavenger crew within 100 light-years can see it. Talia's eyes widened as she looked at something off-screen. Oh no. Oh no no no. What's wrong? We're receiving messages, lots of them. Everyone wants to know what that signal is. And she looked back at Marcus, her face pale. The hierarchs are coming. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. The hierarchs. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galactic community. They were also rigid, militaristic, and absolutely obsessed with order and control. They believed that chaos was evil, and that strict rules and hierarchies were the only way to run a civilization. Humans and hierarchs did not get along. "How long do I have?" Marcus asked quietly. "Their fleet is 48 hours away." "Mr. Chen, the hierarchs have been searching for Caith artifacts for centuries. If they find out you have one—" Talia didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The communication cut off. Marcus turned back to the crystal. "Memoria? Can we run? Can this ship jump to hyperspace?" "Negative," Memoria replied. And for the first time, the AI sounded apologetic. "The jump drive requires repairs. After 17 years of dormancy, several key systems need recalibration. I estimate 6 days before we can safely jump. We have 48 hours. I am aware of the problem." Marcus started pacing, his mind racing. He could try to hide, but the beacon was already active. He could surrender the ship to the hierarchs, but they would almost certainly lock away the archive and keep it for themselves. They believed knowledge should only be in the hands of those who could maintain perfect order, meaning them. Or he could fight. One human, in a 300-year-old ship he barely understood against an entire hierarch armada. That was suicide. Marcus stopped pacing. He looked at the crystal, at all the knowledge it contained. Knowledge that could cure diseases, that could end hunger, that could make life better for billions of beings across the galaxy. And suddenly, he had an idea. It was crazy. It was probably stupid. But it was also the most human idea he had ever had. "Memoria," he said slowly. "Can you broadcast the archive's contents?" "Broadcast? I do not understand." "Send it out. Openly. Freely. To everyone. Not just humans. Everyone. Every species. Every station. Every colony and range. Just give it away." There was a long pause. When Memoria spoke again, the AI sounded surprised. "You wish to make the archive public? To share it with all species simultaneously?" "Yes. If the hierarchs are coming to take it, I'll make sure there's nothing to take. I'll give it to everyone before they can lock it away." "Marcus Chen, do you understand what you are suggesting? This knowledge is worth more than entire planets. You could sell it. You could make demands. Your species could become wealthy and powerful beyond measure." "I know," Marcus said. "But that's not what the Caith wanted. Is it? They didn't create the archive so one species could hoard it. They created it to be shared. So, let's share it." Another pause. Then the crystal flared bright with colors Marcus had never seen before. When Memoria spoke, the AI's voice was filled with something that sounded like joy. "Marcus Chen, you are the first being to access the archive, and in your first decision, you have proven exactly why the Caith chose correctly. Preparing universal broadcast protocols now." Marcus spent the next hour working frantically with Memoria. The AI walked him through setting up transmission arrays, opening channels to every known communications network, and preparing data packets that could be received by any species technology. They started with medicine. The cure for red plague went out first, freely available to any world that needed it. Then came treatments for settling and wasting disease, crin bone rot, and a dozen other ailments that killed millions every year. Next came energy technology. Clean, sustainable, incredibly efficient power systems that could work on any type of planet. Then agricultural data. Techniques for growing food in harsh environments, on ice worlds and desert planets, and everything in between. Marcus didn't stop. He sent out everything. Mathematical discoveries, artistic masterpieces, musical compositions, historical records from extinct civilizations. He gave it all away, asking nothing in return. And the galaxy responded. Within 2 hours, Marcus's communicator was flooded with messages. Doctors on Vrixia 7, confirming they had received the Red Plague cure and it was working. Engineers on Earth examining the energy specifications with amazement. Farmers on colony worlds celebrating new techniques that would triple their food production. But more than that, ships started arriving. Small vessels at first. A science ship from the Talarian Republic. A medical transport from the Setlian homeworld. A cargo hauler full of miners who had heard the broadcast and came to see if it was real. Then bigger ships. Colony vessels. Corporate freighters. Even a few military escorts from species that wanted to protect the source of this incredible gift. By the time 24 hours had passed, there were over 300 ships surrounding Station Kepler 9. All shapes and sizes. All species. All united by one thing. They wanted to protect the archive. Talia contacted Marcus again, her expression stunned. Mr. Chen, do you have any idea what you've done? The galactic networks are exploding. Species that have been enemies for generations are sharing the same medical data. Governments are scrambling to understand the implications. And there's a fleet around this station now, hundreds of ships, from dozens of species, all saying they won't let anyone take your ship by force. Marcus smiled tiredly. He hadn't slept in 24 hours. Good. Because the hierarchs will be here soon. They've been sending messages, Talia said. They're not happy. Their admiral says, you've committed the most irresponsible act in galactic history. That you've released dangerous knowledge without proper oversight or control. Yeah, well, Marcus said, I guess we'll see what they do about it. He cut the communication and looked at the crystal. Memoria, what do you think? Did we do the right thing? Marcus Chen, Memoria said warmly, you did exactly what the Caith hoped someone would do. You trusted in chaos. You trusted in diversity. You trusted that the galaxy's species, working together, would do more good with this knowledge than any one species hoarding it could ever do. Let's hope you're right, Marcus said, because the hierarchs are going to be here in 24 hours, and I don't think they're coming to thank me. Marcus Chen stood at the observation window of the Wandering Echo, watching the chaos unfold around Station Kepler 9. What had been an empty, forgotten corner of space was now packed with ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands now. They kept arriving, jumping out of hyperspace in flashes of blue light, taking up positions around the station. It had been 36 hours since he started broadcasting the archive's contents. 36 hours of sending out miracle after miracle to anyone who would receive it. And the galaxy had responded in ways Marcus never imagined. Incoming transmission, Memoria announced. From the medical vessel Healing Hand. They report that the Red Plague cure has saved 3,000 lives in the past day alone. They are requesting permission to approach and thank you in person. Tell them thanks, but I'm kind of busy right now, Marcus said. He rubbed his tired eyes. He hadn't slept properly since this started. Every time he tried, another message would come in. Another miracle confirmed. Another life saved. Incoming transmission from Earth's colonial administrator. She wishes to offer you... Not now, Memoria. Incoming transmission from... How long until the hierarchs arrive? Marcus interrupted. 12 hours. Memoria replied calmly. Their armada consists of 47 warships, led by Admiral Talth's flagship, the Perfect Order. They have sent 17 demands for your immediate surrender. Marcus laughed bitterly. Just 17? They're being polite. He turned away from the window and walked back to the central chamber. The crystal still pulsed with light, but now it looked dimmer. They had transmitted so much data over the past day and a half that the archive was nearly depleted. Nearly, but not completely. There was still knowledge inside things Marcus hadn't had time to broadcast yet. His communicator beeped. It was Talia again. Mr. Chen, we need to talk about evacuation, she said. Her face looked drawn and exhausted. The hierarchs are demanding that everyone leave the area. They say anyone who remains will be considered hostile. 1B. Hostile. 1B. 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 Are people leaving? Marcus asked. Talia shook her head slowly. That's the thing. Some are. Maybe 100 ships jumped away in the last hour. But more keep arriving. There are over 1,500 vessels here now, Marcus. Cargo ships, science vessels, medical transports, colony haulers. Even some military ships that, well, their governments didn't exactly authorize them to be here. They mutinied? A Kryn battlecruiser arrived 3 hours ago. Its captain said his entire crew voted to protect the archive. And if his government didn't like it, they could come get him themselves. Talia smiled slightly. You've started something here. Something big. After she signed off, Marcus sat down in front of the crystal, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. He was just a salvage dealer. He collected scrap metal and old equipment for a living. How had he ended up here, at the center of a galactic incident with an alien armada coming to destroy him? You are afraid, Memoria observed quietly. Of course I'm afraid, Marcus said. I'm about to get blown up by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Yet, you do not run. The Wandering Echo jump drive is now operational. I completed repairs 2 hours ago. You could leave. Marcus looked up sharply. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wished to see what you would choose, Memoria said. The Caith believed that true character is revealed not in easy moments, but in difficult ones. You have a choice, Marcus Chen. You can take this ship and jump to safety, or you can stay and face what comes. Marcus thought about running. He could take the Wandering Echo and disappear into deep space. The ship was fast. The hierarchs would never catch him. He could live on board. Maybe find a distant colony where nobody cared about galactic politics. But what about everyone else? What about all those ships that had come to protect the archive? What about the people being saved by the medical knowledge he had broadcast? What about the farmers and engineers and scientists who were already using the Caith's gifts to make lives better? If he ran now, the hierarchs would scatter the protective fleet and probably destroy the station out of spite. They would declare the archive's knowledge illegal and hunt down anyone who used it. I'm staying, Marcus said quietly. I hoped you would say that. Memoria replied, and Marcus could hear warmth in the AI's voice. The next 12 hours passed in a blur. Marcus tried to rest but couldn't. Instead, he worked with Memoria to transmit as much remaining data as possible. Every medical formula, every piece of technology, every scrap of knowledge, he pushed it all out to the galaxy, flooding the networks with information. By the time the hierarchs arrived, there was almost nothing left in the archive. Marcus had given it all away. The hierarch armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 47 warships arranged in precise geometric patterns, their hulls gleaming silver and black. Each ship was enormous, bristling with weapons and shields. They moved together like a single organism, with no wasted movement or hesitation. At the center of the formation was the perfect order, Admiral Talth's flagship. It was the largest ship Marcus had ever seen. A massive wedge of metal and firepower that looked like it could crack a planet in half. Marcus's communicator crackled to life. A voice spoke in harsh, clipped tones, the sound of someone who expected absolute obedience. Attention all vessels. This is Admiral Talth of the Hierarch Armada. You are ordered to disperse immediately. Any ship that does not comply within 10 minutes will be fired upon. This is your only warning. Marcus watched the protective fleet on his monitors. Some ships began to move away, their captains deciding that protecting the archive wasn't worth dying for. He didn't blame them. The hierarchs were terrifying. But most of the ships stayed. Over 1,000 vessels of all shapes and sizes, holding their positions around Station Kepler 9, cargo haulers and science ships and medical transports, none of them armed, all of them refusing to move. The 10 minutes passed in tense silence. Then Admiral Talth spoke again, and this time his voice was directed specifically at Marcus. Human. Marcus Chen. You will surrender yourself and your vessel immediately, or we will open fire on the station. You have 5 minutes to comply. Number 4. Marcus's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his legs to make them stop. Memoria. Open a channel to the Admiral. Channel open. Marcus took a deep breath. Admiral Talth, this is Marcus Chen. I'm not surrendering. There was a pause. Then Talth's voice came back, cold and angry. Then you and everyone near you will die. We will destroy your ship, the station, and any vessel that stands in our way. This is your final warning. I understand, Marcus said. But I need you to understand something too. The archive is already gone. I've spent the last day and a half broadcasting everything to anyone who would listen. Medical cures, technology, knowledge. I gave it all away. There's nothing left for you to seize. Another pause, longer this time. When Talth spoke again, his voice was shaking with rage. You have committed the most irresponsible act in galactic history. You have released dangerous knowledge to species that are not ready for it. You have created chaos across the entire sector. Species that were stable are now in upheaval. Governments are collapsing. Old alliances are breaking. All because of your reckless actions. Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe I've given people the tools to make their own choices, instead of having everything controlled by species like yours. Control is not evil, human. Control is necessary. Order is what keeps the galaxy from tearing itself apart. Without hierarchy, without discipline, without someone to make the difficult decisions, there is only chaos and destruction. Marcus stood up, feeling anger rise in his chest. You know what? Come aboard. Come see what the Caith left behind. Come see the archive for yourself, and then tell me if you still think it should be locked away. What? You heard me. Come aboard the Wandering Echo. Alone. Unarmed. Let Memoria show you what the Caith really wanted. If you still think I'm wrong after that, then do what you have to do. The silence that followed was so long that Marcus thought Talth had cut the connection. But finally, the Admiral spoke. His voice, cautious. You would allow me aboard your vessel? Without guards? Without weapons? You understand that I could simply take control of the ship once inside? You could try, Marcus said, but I don't think Memoria would let you. And honestly, Admiral, I'm tired. I'm tired of arguing and threatening and posturing. Come see what this is really about. Then, make your choice. Another long pause. Very well, Talth said finally. I will come. But know this. Human, if this is a trick, my fleet will turn that station, and every ship near it, into debris. No tricks, Marcus promised. Just the truth. 20 minutes later, a small shuttle detached from the perfect order and flew toward the Wandering Echo. Marcus watched it approach on the monitors, his heart pounding. This was either going to work or it was going to get everyone killed. The shuttle docked. The airlock opened, and Admiral Talth stepped aboard. The hierarch was tall, almost 7 feet, with gray skin covered in geometric tattoos that marked his rank and achievements. He had 4 arms, each ending in 3-fingered hands, and his eyes were deep black with no visible pupils. He wore a military uniform that was perfectly crisp and clean, without a single wrinkle or imperfection. He looked at Marcus with those black eyes, his expression unreadable. I am here, Talth said. Show me what you think justifies this chaos. Marcus gestured toward the central chamber. This way. They walked through the corridors of the Wandering Echo, Talth looking around with what might have been surprise. The ship was still beautiful, still glowing with soft bioluminescent light, still feeling more alive than any vessel should. When they reached the central chamber, Talth stopped in his tracks, staring at the crystal. "This is the archive?" he asked quietly. "What's left of it?" Marcus said. "Most of it is already out there, shared across the galaxy. But Memoria can show you what it was, what the Caith intended." "Do it," Talth ordered. The crystal flared to life, and the chamber filled with light and memory. Talth stood frozen as images surrounded him, the history of the Caith, their rise and their transformation, the creation of the archive, and the hope they had placed in whoever would find it. And then Memoria showed him something that made Marcus's breath catch. She showed him the Caith's greatest secret, the reason they had transcended, and why they had left their gift behind, specifically for species like the hierarchs to find. Talth's expression changed as he watched, shifting from anger to confusion to something that looked almost like horror. When the images faded, the Admiral stood in silence for a long time. Then, very quietly, he spoke. "Show me more." Admiral Talth stood in the glowing chamber, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. His black eyes were fixed on the crystal, watching memories that were thousands of years old play out in brilliant light. Marcus waited, barely breathing. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. Outside, over 1,000 ships waited nervously. The Hierarch Armada had their weapons charged and ready. One wrong word from Talth and people would start dying. "Show me more," Talth repeated, his voice hollow. Memoria responded immediately. The crystal pulsed, and new images filled the chamber. Marcus had seen some of this before, but not what Memoria was showing now. This was deeper, more personal, more painful. The images showed the Caith from thousands of years ago, but they looked different. They moved differently. Their cities were rigid and geometric, built in perfect straight lines and right angles. Everything was ordered, controlled, measured. This was the Caith before the Great Understanding, Memoria explained softly. They were not always the enlightened beings you know from history. Once, they were very much like you, Admiral Talth. Talth flinched as if struck. The images continued. Marcus saw Caith leaders giving orders, armies marching in perfect formation, and other species bowing before them. The Caith had built an empire based on control and hierarchy. They believed that chaos was evil, and that only through strict order could civilization survive. "We conquered 17 species," Memoria said. "We forced them to adopt our ways, our systems, our beliefs. We destroyed their art because it was too chaotic. We banned their music because it did not follow proper mathematical patterns. We eliminated their traditions because they did not fit into our ordered universe." The images shifted to show rebellion. Species fighting back against Caith control. Wars that lasted decades. Planets burning. Billions dying. And then our empire began to collapse. Memoria continued. Because when you squeeze too tightly, everything breaks. The species we had conquered rose up together. Our own people began to question whether order was worth so much death. Our civilization stood at the edge of extinction. Talth's hands were clenched into fists now. Marcus could see that the Admiral understood exactly what he was watching. It was like looking in a mirror. "What saved us?" Memoria asked. It was not more control, not stricter rules, not better weapons. What saved the Caith was a single moment of surrender. The images showed a Caith leader old, tired, scarred from battle. She stood before a council and said something that changed everything. The translation appeared in glowing text. "We were wrong." "That was High Chancellor Xylanth," Memoria said. "She had led our military for 50 years. She had conquered 6 worlds herself. And she stood before the entire Caith government and admitted that everything they had built was based on a lie." The images showed what happened next. The Caith began to change. They released the species they had conquered. They apologized. They opened their borders and invited other cultures to share their knowledge and traditions. They began to study art and music and philosophy, not to control them, but to understand them. It took 1,000 years, Memoria said. 1,000 years of learning that order and chaos need each other. That control is not strength, but fear. That diversity makes you stronger, not weaker. That embracing paradox and contradiction is not weakness, but wisdom. The images showed the Caith transformation. Their cities began to curve and flow instead of standing rigid. Their music became wild and beautiful. Their art exploded with color and emotion. And slowly, painfully, they learned to let go of their need to control everything. And that is how we achieved the great understanding. Memoria finished. We learned that perfection is impossible and undesirable. We learned that chaos is not evil, but necessary. We learned that trying to control everything leads only to destruction. The images faded. Caith stood in silence, his breathing heavy. We left the archive behind, Memoria said gently, because we knew that other species would follow the same path we did. We knew that rigid, ordered civilizations like the hierarchs would seek our technology, hoping it would help them perfect their control. And we hoped that when they found it, they would learn what we learned. That the greatest danger is not chaos. The greatest danger is the belief that you can eliminate chaos. Caith finally spoke, his voice rough. You are saying we are doomed to fail. That our entire civilization is built on a mistake. No, Memoria said. I am saying you have a choice. The same choice we had. You can continue down this path until you break. Or you can bend. You can learn. You can change. 42. Wever Port. Uncreted. Wever Port. Wever Ported. Uncreted Cass. Wever Port. Marcus stepped forward. Admiral, I've spent the last 2 days giving away the most valuable knowledge in the galaxy. Medical cures. Technology. Discoveries that could make your species incredibly powerful. And you know what I've seen? Caith looked at him with those black, unreadable eyes. I've seen species that hate each other, sharing the same medical data to save lives. I've seen poor colonies getting energy technology that will lift them out of poverty. I've seen scientists from a dozen worlds collaborating on research, building on what the Caith gave us. It's chaos, yes. It's messy and complicated and nobody is in control of it. But it's also beautiful. It's also working. And if someone uses this knowledge for evil? Caith asked quietly. If someone takes the technology and builds weapons? If the medical advances are used to create biological horrors? What then? Then we deal with it. Marcus said. Together. All of us. Not with one species trying to control everything, but with everyone working together. That's the whole point. The Caith trusted the galaxy to figure it out. I'm asking you to do the same. Caith was quiet for a long time. Finally, he turned back to the crystal. Memoria, he said slowly. Show me the last day. Show me the moment the Caith transcended. The chamber filled with light again. Marcus watched as the final memories played out. The Caith gathering in massive groups across their worlds. They were not sad or afraid. They were joyful. They touched each other in farewell, not because they were dying, but because they were graduating to something greater. And then, one by one, they began to glow. Their bodies became light, their forms dissolving into pure energy and consciousness. They were not leaving because they had to. They were leaving because they were ready. They had learned everything physical existence could teach them. And now, they were moving on to the next stage. Within hours, millions of Caith had transformed and departed. Their cities stood empty but pristine. Their ships dormant but maintained. Their knowledge preserved in vessels like the wandering echo. And everywhere they left messages. The same message, repeated in 1,000 different ways. Thank you. We learned. We hope you will too. When the images faded, Caith stood with his head bowed. His forearms trembled slightly. "I have led the hierarch military for 30 years," he said quietly. "I have maintained order across 50 worlds. I have eliminated threats to stability. I have done everything I was taught to do. Everything I believed was right. And now, you show me that everything I have built is the same mistake that nearly destroyed the Caith." "Not a mistake," Memoria said gently. "A stage. A phase. The Caith went through it. Humans are going through their own version now. Every species reaches a point where they must choose between rigid control and flexible adaptation. You are at that point now. Admiral." Marcus watched Caith carefully. The Admiral was silent for a long time, his black eyes distant. Then, finally, Caith straightened. He tapped a device on his uniform, opening a communication channel to his fleet. "All vessels," he said, his voice steady. "Stand down. Lower weapons. We are withdrawing." Marcus felt his knees go weak with relief. But Caith wasn't finished. He looked directly at Marcus as he continued speaking. "Furthermore, I am resigning my commission as Admiral, effective immediately. I am citing philosophical differences with hierarch command structure." He paused. "The hierarchs have much to learn from chaos, and I cannot lead them if I do not believe in what they stand for anymore." "Admiral," Marcus started. "Former Admiral," Caith corrected. He smiled slightly, a strange expression on his rigid features. "For 30 years, I have maintained perfect order. I have never questioned my orders. I have never deviated from protocol. And in one day, a human salvage dealer has shown me that perfection is not a virtue. It is a cage." He turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at Marcus. "What will you do now?" Caith asked. "You own the most famous ship in the galaxy. You are the human who gave away a fortune. Every government will want to speak with you. Every corporation will try to buy the ship. What will you do?" What? Marcus looked at the crystal, at Memoria's gentle light pulsing in its heart. "I'm going to donate the ship," he said, "to a coalition of scientists from multiple species. Let them use it as a mobile university, traveling the galaxy and continuing to share what the Caith left behind. The archive is almost empty now, but there are still lessons to teach, still knowledge to spread. And you?" Caith pressed. "What will you do?" Marcus laughed. "I'm going back to my salvage yard on Titan's moon. I've got work waiting for me. Old equipment to collect. Scrap metal to sell. Nothing exciting. After all this, you will return to salvage work?" "Why not?" Marcus shrugged. "I'm good at it. I enjoy it. I don't need to be famous or powerful or important. I just needed to do the right thing when it mattered. Now, I'm done." Caith studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You are a very strange human, Marcus Chen." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "I get that a lot." 3 days later, Marcus stood in the docking bay, watching as the last of his belongings were transferred off the wandering Echo. A coalition of scientists from 12 different species had already taken over the ship. They were eager and excited, planning expeditions to share the Caith's knowledge with remote colonies and unexplored regions. Memoria's voice spoke in his mind one last time. "Thank you, Marcus Chen. You have done exactly what the Caith hoped someone would do. You trusted in the goodness of others. You believed in sharing rather than hoarding. You proved that your species, chaotic and contradictory as you are, understands the most important lesson of all." "What lesson is that?" Marcus asked quietly. "That the greatest strength is not control, it is trust. The Caith trusted the galaxy with their gift. You trusted the galaxy to use it wisely. And now, we will see what impossible things happen next." Marcus smiled. "Take care of them, Memoria. The scientists. Keep them safe." "I will." "And Marcus?" The Caith left one final message, specifically for whoever opened the archive. Would you like to hear it? Sure. The voice that filled Marcus's mind was not Memoria's. It was older, warmer, filled with joy and hope. It was the voice of the Caith themselves, speaking across 200 years. Welcome, young species. Welcome to the galaxy. You have proven yourselves ready, not by being perfect, but by being perfectly imperfect, by embracing contradiction, by trusting in chaos. We cannot wait to see what you become. Thank you for learning what we learned. Thank you for sharing what we shared. And thank you for being beautifully, wonderfully human. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks. He wiped them away, embarrassed. Goodbye, Memoria, he said. Goodbye, Marcus Chen. May your salvage yard prosper. Marcus left the wandering echo and caught a transport back to his home on Titan's moon. The trip took 3 days. When he arrived, there were reporters waiting, but he avoided them. He went straight to his small salvage yard with its piles of scrap metal and old equipment. Everything was exactly as he had left it. Marcus picked up a wrench and got back to work. Later that evening, as he sat in his small office eating a sandwich, he received a message. It was from Talth, the former Hierarch Admiral. I am traveling to the Caith homeworld, the message said, to see their empty cities and try to understand them better. I do not know what I will do with my life now, but I wanted to thank you for showing me that there is more to existence than order. Perhaps one day, when I have learned enough, we will meet again. Until then, stay chaotic, human. Marcus smiled and deleted the message. His communicator beeped again. This time it was a news report. The headline read, Galactic Medical Council reports red plague, completely eradicated, using Caith cure. Millions saved. Another beep. Another headline. 7 colony worlds report. Food surplus, for first time in decades, thanks to new agricultural techniques. Another. Tensions between Vrixian and Kryn, governments ease, as both species collaborate on energy research. Marcus turned off his communicator and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the wandering echo was traveling the galaxy, spreading knowledge and hope. Somewhere out there, species that had been enemies were learning to work together. Somewhere out there, lives were being saved and futures were being built. And it had all started because one human salvage dealer had gone to an auction nobody else attended and bought a ship nobody else wanted. Marcus finished his sandwich and went back to work. He had scrap metal to sort,